Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are strapping ourselves into what might be the world's most terrifying and honestly surprisingly complex toy car. We're navigating decades of self-referential horror.
That's right. We're talking about the Chucky franchise.
Exactly. 7 canonical films, 3 pretty expansive television seasons. It spans, 5 decades now of continuous, sometimes very convoluted lore, all sort of hidden under the guise of killer dolls.
Yeah, and it's really not just a simple slasher series, which I think is what a lot of people assume. It's actually, it's become this meticulous, almost living document of horror history and meta commentary.
The sheer density of it is kind of amazing. All the intentional and maybe sometimes unintentional secrets, packed continuity. It's pretty astounding when you dig in.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to pull out some of those nuggets, the bits that really prove this franchise is operating on a much deeper level than you might expect. Tailored for you, the curious learner who maybe appreciates a shocking backstory and a bit of structural analysis.
Okay, let's unpack this straight away. The origin of the Lakeshore Strangler himself, Charles Lee Ray, his actual name, his core identity, it's literally a composite of notorious American criminals.
Yeah. Pretty on the nose, but effect. His name comes from combining serial killer Charles Manson with assassins Lee Harvey Oswald and James Earl Ray.
That's some commitment to dark trivia right from the get-go.
Right.
It really establishes the franchise's focus on American fear from minute one.
It really does. And speaking of shocking details, here's one that's kind of an almost pun. If Charles Lee Ray had actually succeeded in transferring his soul into his intended human host, Andy Barclay, he would have been named, according to the sources anyway, Charles Barkley.
No way. That would have led to a very different kind of sneaker commercial.
Just a bit.
Okay, sticking with the original 1988 film Child. Clever references, the foreshadowing, they start basically in the openings before Charles Lee Ray.
Right. When he flees into the Playland toy store, the front window itself gives this subtle clue about the limitations of his new existence.
How so?
Well, the window display shows various toys, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them were driving little cars. And this becomes the one consistent, massive limitation Chucky has throughout the early films. He's a doll. He can't drive.
Okay. So the toys in the window are literally doing the one thing he's constantly failing at.
Exactly. It's right there from the start.
And near that window, you can also spot a picture. It's Humpty Dumpty next to a French duck, I think.
Yeah, that's the one. And it's this immediate, really morbid visual clue. It foreshadows Maggie's fate later in the film, her fatal fall from the 8th story, just like Humpty Dumpty's great fall.
Wow, okay, that's specific.
But if we dig even deeper into that opening scene, there's a board game visible. It's called Fireball Island. It features a cursed volcano.
Right.
Chucky actually shoots towards it to blast open the door, which, essentially confirms his own cursed nature right then and there.
Yeah.
We should probably pause on this for a sec, because this sets up the original film's sort of rule set. The game symbolizes his eventual death in the climax, needing a shot directly to the heart. That specific vulnerable target. It's like destroying the cursed core of the volcano in the game.
So the early films established these rules.
Only to break them later. Yeah. Often for creative reasons, yeah. But the foundation is laid right there.
That's a brilliant hidden detail, linking the object permanence of the curse to his actual physical vulnerability. Okay, now here's one that's definitely interesting and maybe, possibly, completely unintentional. An accident that points to the franchise.
Oh, the title screen capitalization.
Yeah, the original title screen for Child's Play. It's got this weird capitalization. All the letters are capitalized except for A and I.
Right. And then, decades later, in 2019, the rebooted Child's Play film features Chucky not as a voodoo-possessed doll, but as an artificial intelligence, AI.
The initials AI were literally the only letters left uncapitalized in that original title almost 30 years early. Coincidence? Maybe. But pretty cool.
It's one of those things you just have to wonder about.
So that early title screen might have hinted at the future, but let's dive into the core identity. How the first 3 films, the original trilogy era, secretly established the rules of Chucky's existence and, more importantly, the cycle of trauma.
Okay, so when Charles Lee Ray is dying in the toy store, he knocks over that stack of good guy dolls. His choice to possess one, it's driven by pure desperation, not really intent. Well, he'd actually memorized the voodoo incantation plan to use it to transfer his soul into another human if he ever got into serious trouble. But there was no human immediately available in the toy store.
So the doll was just there.
Yeah. He tries it almost as a last-ditch effort. And later, he actually expresses genuine shock to his voodoo mentor, John Bishop, that the incantation even worked on an inanimate object.
So this entire multi-decade franchise basically exists because of sheer luck almost?
Pretty much. Meanwhile, our protagonist, poor Andy Barclay, is completely immersed in this toy company's world. Everything he owns is branded good guy. Total corporate saturation.
The sources even point out his bread is called good stuff.
Yeah, and this is an important detail, I think. It emphasizes that Andy lives in this world where the corporate machine has totally branded and commodified his existence, even before the horror starts.
Right. So the moment he gets the good guy doll, it stops being just a toy and becomes the source of all this trauma.
And it demonstrates the true horror of, like, corporate oversight and, frankly, complicity in the face of suffering later.
And if we're talking about the unsettling stuff in the original film, we have to mention that creepy good guy's mascot. You see it in the commercial Andy watches.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine that thing chasing you? That massive, grotesque, smiling head instead of a tiny doll?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That mascot is arguably way more unsettling than the doll itself.
Yeah.
It's just pure existential dread in cartoon form.
Yeah.
They absolutely missed a trick not elevating that design to be the main villain at some point later on.
Total. Okay, let's talk about some continuity details and maybe some error. The news station that covers the escaped accomplice, Eddie Caputo.
WDO.
WL, yeah. A subtle, almost throwaway nod to the doll.
But then we hit that little logical error in the writing right near the start. Andy sees the commercial, learns about the doll for the first time. He's like, wow. Then maybe 5 minutes of screen time later, his mom, Karen, wakes up and says really confidently, I know you want a good guy.
But she was asleep when he watched the commercial. It feels like a pretty big misstep in what's otherwise a really tightly written film. Does the source material offer any, explanation, or is it just...
It seems like it's mostly plot convenience, a necessary evil just to get the doll into Andy's hands quickly.
Yeah.
It moves things along. However, one cool detail that people often miss is the photo of Andy's deceased father. You see it around the house. That photo is actually a cameo by the director of the film, Tom Holland. And he also voiced that unnerving Good Guys commercial Andy watched earlier.
Ah, okay. Nice little insider nod. So moving into Child's Play 2. This film immediately establishes the real villain, maybe the corporation.
Definitely. The film opens by showing the intense aftermath for PlayPal toys. You see the executives prioritizing profit over, public safety. They fully restore the doll even though they know it was involved in a homicide investigation.
This is where that structural theme of corporate failure really gets cemented, isn't it?
Absolutely. The president of the company, Mr. Sullivan, he has this custom license plate FUN1, and another executive's plate reads EXCC4.
Class.
It's this constant visual reminder that the people in charge are basically treating this deadly threat like it's just some fun accounting problem.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's also a recurring box error.
Right, the Play Partners thing.
Yeah, it labels the company Play Partners Toys instead of Play Pals on some boxes, which just adds this layer of sloppy corporate execution on top of the malice.
That focus on profit over victim care, that's the real insidious horror there. And the corporate restoration scene itself, it has this brilliant, almost meta pop culture parallel.
You mean the repair scene?
Yeah.
Right? When they repair the doll, they use these specialized dental, and it's visually and tonally really similar to that incredibly satisfying restoration scene in Toy Story 2.
And that connection is kind of crucial because Child's Play and Toy Story have had this weird shared history for decades.
Totally. Both have a protagonist named Andy. Both had installments released in 2019 on the same day.
And the Chucky remake poster even directly mocked the Pixar one, didn't it?
It did. The rivalry is deeply embedded. It's bizarre.
Okay, let's zero in on Andy. He moves to a foster home. It's painted in baby blue and pink, typical nursery color. Yet his foster mother inexplicably leaves a good guy doll in the closet for him, even though she knows he has severe PTSD related specific toys.
It's just a constant cycle of adult failure surrounding this poor kid. And in that same closet, there's the Nash Nightmare Board skateboard.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Which clearly nods to other horror icons, right?
Yeah.
Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. The film is basically signaling its lineage, saying, yeah, we're part of this horror pantheon.
The thematic symbolism keeps going, too. The foster mother reads Hansel and Gretel.
But she explicitly skips the ending, which kind of suggests that the initial three films, the first time Andy sort of escapes the trauma, form this self-contained trilogy structure before the series shifts genre entirely later on.
And his teacher, Mrs. Kettlewell.
She reads Pinocchio, the tale of a puppet turning into a real boy. I mean, it's a very clear, maybe a bit heavy-handed parallel to Chucky's whole deal, transforming from an inanimate object into a vessel for a human soul.
And later, when Andy's being picked up from the foster home, there's a carousel in the back.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's a visual symbol of Andy's life being stuck in this endless cyclical loop, right?
Yeah.
New homes, relentless Chucky attacks. He just can't break free.
Okay, now we arrive at Child's Play 3, the third act of that original cycle. The resurrection method. The sources call it the dumbest method yet. Why do they critique this harsh?
Well, it's mostly the logistics, I think. Chucky's dried blood somehow gets infused into the melted plastic in the factory machine, and boom, he's resurrected.
Right.
But the established rule of the first two films was that the Damballa curse, the soul transfer, had to happen within a pretty limited time frame of the human's death. Here, they're resurrecting him 8 years later just through like dried blood and hot plastic.
So it completely throws out the voodoo logic they'd carefully set up.
Basically, yeah. It prioritizes convenience over the established.
But despite that messy resurrection, there's this really creepy detail in this movie hinting back at the corporate involved, Mr. Sullivan's office computer.
It contains a file named Barclay.doc.
Which is huge, right? It implies the toy company was actively tracking Andy's every move for 8 years.
Exactly. To make sure he didn't further damage their profit margins or, reveal the truth about the dolls. That is true. Insidious horror. A massive corporation stalking a victimized child for almost a decade. It really grounds that final theme that the system itself totally failed.
The military school setting in Child's Play 3 also loads up on the intentional irony and foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah. Sullivan's office has a little toy Ferris wheel, which comes before the final climax at the fair, and a toy army man preceding the military school setting.
And then there's Led Motnik explaining how the Romans invented the military haircut so enemies couldn't grab their hair and slit their throats.
Only for Botnik himself to meet his end in exactly that way later. Chucky slits his throat during a haircut. The irony is thick.
And finally, the death blow in Child's Play 3. It highlights this confusing shift in the rules. Andy shoots the doll in the heart.
Which worked perfectly in the first, killed him dead.
But here, it just blows his arm off. The rules have officially changed, or at least become inconsistent.
Right. This time, the key to killing him is knocking him into that high-speed shredding fan, which symbolically, visually, represents him falling into the pits of hell. It's a powerful...
And it perfectly sets up the big genre shift that happens in the next film.
Exactly. That visual, the doll falling into the shredder, symbolizing hell, it's the perfect entry point into part 2, where the franchise basically ditches the straight psychological horror.
And shifts fully into meta-satire with Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky.
Right. Bride of Chucky is essentially a masterclass in genre homage. It moves from slasher to horror comedy. The title, the themes, they're clearly referencing Bride of Frankenstein.
How so, specifically?
Well, the revival by electricity, the stitched-up look of both Chucky and Tiffany later, and even the eventual failure of the created couple. They even recite Mary Shelley's quote verbatim in the opening. The punishment that befell a mortal man who dared to emulate God.
But the bigger, more immediate influence at the time was probably the new wave of self-aware horror that Scream had kicked off just 2 years earlier.
Oh, absolutely. The poster for Bride of Chucky is a direct parody of the Scream 2 poster, and its logo uses that same pointy K that you see in the Scream logo. It was a clear signal. Chucky isn't just a slasher anymore. He's a slasher who knows he's a slasher. He knows the rules.
And the opening scene proves it, right? The Lockport Police evidence room.
Yeah, they literally built an homage to horror history right into that set. They stocked it with artifacts from all the icons. Michael Myers' mask, Freddy Krueger's glove, Jason Voorhees' mask, maybe even Leatherface's chainsaw is in there somewhere.
It's basically the Scream opening dialogue, but realized visual.
Exactly.
We could probably spend a whole hour just on Bride's visual and linguistic trivia. Tiffany, being the sort of gothic queen, frequently uses these elevated French.
Yeah, often mixing like high culture with low murder.
Yeah.
Even the Damballa chant itself is technically a French incantation.
She drops French constantly, doesn't she? It adds this bizarre, kind of pseudo-sophisticated layer to her killing spree.
Damien tries to seduce her with La Petite Mort, the Little Death. She suggests a menage, a tour, a threesome. The champagne bottle she uses is Gunther Rhymes' Paste of Rhyme. And if you look at the full Damballa chant she uses...
What's the translation?
Yeah, it translates to something like, to the almighty Damballa, give me the power, I beg of you, to the mercy of my soul, to the point of my death. Hear me out from my condemned voice. It's very self-condemning, dark, and rooted deeply in Haitian voodoo lore, even if the movie plays fast and loose with it.
And the movie is just a constant stream of horror Easter eggs, too.
Non-stop. Chucky's sudden headspin references the ex. The character Damien Blaylock gets his name from components from The Omen. Chucky tells Tiffany to turn to page 217 in the voodoo manual. That's the infamous haunted room number in The Shining. In
Chief Kincaid, after Chucky and Tiffany launch all those nails into his face, he ends up resembling Pinhead from Hellraiser.
Right. Symbolically, too, Tiffany has that dagger heart tattoo on her chest, which connects directly back to the established rule that the heart, or more specifically, the Heart of Damballa amulet that Tiffany needs later, is the key to defeating Charles Lee Ray.
So even while it's being funny, it's still building new lore based on those old vulnerabilities.
Exactly. It proves the franchise is still thinking about its own rules, even as it bends them.
Okay, this brings us to one of the most brilliant bits of meta-commentary in the whole series, I think. The song playing during their drive.
Monster Magnets, see you in hell.
Yeah, and it contains that lyric about a body rising up from under a Jersey landfill.
And where are they literally going? They're driving to New Jersey, specifically to dig up Charles Lee Ray's body. The song title also perfectly connects back to Chucky's metaphorical fall into the pits of hell fan at the end of Child's Play 3.
It's just this flawless piece of musical foreshadowing that's also rooted in the actual geography of the film. So clever.
It really is.
Then Seed of Chucky takes the metacinema idea and pushes it to its absolute. The entire plot revolves around the production of a movie called Chucky Goes Psycho.
Yeah, an adaptation of their lives, basically.
Yeah.
It directly parallels the Stab franchise within the Scream movie. And you have Jennifer Tilly playing for herself, playing Tiffany, just blurring the lines of reality completely.
But the big reveal, the core psychological element, is Glenda's dissociative identity disorder.
Which is a direct, clear nod to Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Glen is the angelic, passive personality, while Glenda is homicidal and vicious.
Just like Norman Bates switching between his polite self and his vicious mother, Norma Bates.
Exact. And when Glenda assumes the violent female identity, she even dresses up in a white dress, which directly mirrors Norman dressing up in his mother's robes in Psycho.
There's also a subtle but great nod to Jaws in there somewhere.
Yeah, when the Chucky prop on the movie set breaks down, it references the notoriously faulty animatronic shark they used in the original Jaws, which famously caused massive production headache. A little inside baseball for film nerds.
But this film also commits this hilarious piece of, continuity hypocrisy that the sources flag up.
The driving.
Yes. Chucky and Tiffany successfully drive a car. Even though, in Bride of Chucky, Chucky himself yelled, "We're dolls, you dope," about how utterly impossible that would be.
The rule changes whenever the plot demands it, which is pretty much the hallmark of that self-aware horror era, right?
Yeah.
Logic takes a back seat to the gag or the spectacle.
So after this total dive into satire, the franchise was ready to swing back towards darkness again, which leads us into part 3, the dark revival and cult expansion.
Right. Curse of Chuck. This marks a very conscious return to roots, which I think audiences really needed after Seed.
How does it signal that?
Well, the Illinois license plates on the truck in the opening signal, they're moving back towards the suspense and psychological manipulation of the original Child. The film takes place largely in one house, which dramatically increases the tension and claustrophobia.
And crucially, this film introduces a major shift in how the audience, right?
Right. Yeah, this is key. It initially makes us, the audience, doubt if Chucky is actually alive.
Yeah.
Unlike the original film where we knew he was alive, but the adults in the movie didn't.
So it creates this psychological horror environment for the viewer, too, even if that doubt is maybe complicated slightly by the contractual need to credit Brad Dourif's voice right at the start.
It still works for a good chunk of the film, and we see clear visual continuity woven into this new environment. The elevator in Nica's house, it's the same kind of old-fashioned elevator we saw in the original Barclay apartment building.
Chucky's POV shots come back, too.
Yep. Reinforcing that feeling of being hunted. And when Nica stabs the doll, the fluff floating down is designed to mimic the snowy setting of the first film. Little visual echoes.
The thematic cycle of trauma also starts again here. Chucky finds a new victim to psychologically manipulate, Alice.
Right. And his cruel line to her, "Life's a S and then you die," it directly parallels that initial manipulative Andy-Chucky dynamic. And Nica's Aunt Maggie, her fate creates this grim parallel between the two main protagonists' trauma. Both women suffer fatal falls from a height.
There's a fascinating thematic layer that comes up when Chucky declares there is no God.
Yeah, which is pretty ironic considering he relies entirely on the Haitian voodoo deity Damballa for his very existence.
Wait, so the literal vessel of Damballa, the power that gives him life, is now an atheist? How does that even work? What does that mean for his motivations?
Well, it suggests his connection to Damballa is completely corrupt, maybe even purely narcissistic. It's transactional, not spiritual for him.
Yeah.
He uses the power, but doesn't respect the source. It also gives the franchise license to use all sorts of religious imagery and metaphor later in the series, especially in the TV show, without being strictly confined to the original voodoo rule. Oh, and we also see Nica use her wheelchair handicap to her advantage against Ian.
Right. The sources call that a brilliant alpha move, turning her perceived vulnerability into a lethal weapon.
Exactly. It's a great character moment.
Nica's online research in this film is in too. It gives us this quick chronological overview of Chucky's career.
Yeah, it lists his crimes from the most recent, the LA homicide, from Seed of Chucky, all the way back to the oldest, the Chicago triple homicide involving Maggie, Eddie Caputo, and Dr. Ardmore in the original Child's. It's a neat way to solidify the complex continuity for the viewer.
And the final 6 minutes are just an abs fan service explosion.
Totally. We see Tiffany repeat her signature throat-slitting kill with the nail file. We see the successful transfer of Chucky's soul into Alice Pierce, setting up future plots. And then the post-credit scene reintroduces an adult, Andy Barclay.
Who has a picture of Kyle from Child's Play 2 wall.
Right, suggesting they're still in contact and are now basically unified hunters. It connects the dots.
Speaking of Andy, Cult of Chucky focuses heavily on his preparedness, his dedication to this long-term war against Chucky.
Yeah, we see his snowy cabin, his impressive firearms collection, and he's even wearing his old Kent Academy military school sweater.
Embroidered with the Latin motto, nunquam non paratus.
Which translates to never unprepared.
Yeah.
Sums him up perfectly now.
And his safe combination is a really deep cut into the specific lore.
It is. The code is 111011, which is binary for the number 3.
Referencing Child's Play 3.
Exactly. The last time Andy was really the focus, the end of his time as a primary protagonist before the franchise shifted towards Tiffany and satire. It's like this secret language embedded in the movie telling us Andy is still kind of fixated on that specific period of his life, that trauma.
The key plot device that allows for all the craziness in Cult is the multi-possession. And the explanation is delivered with this almost throwaway line.
That Chucky learned the new spell from voodooForDummies.com.
Yeah, which is either like genius satire mocking how easily cinematic lore can be changed on the fly,
or just lazy writing, depending on your perspective. Regardless, it allows him to inhabit multiple dolls at once, leading to the whole Cult of Chucky concept.
And the asylum setting itself is just this massive tribute to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Absolutely. You've got a nurse offering Nica juicy fruit gum, just like in the movie, and Chucky literally calls the place a Fing Cuckoo's Nest. It's not subtle.
The cult callbacks are immense, too. When the trio of Chunkies turns their heads simultaneously, that 180-degree spin.
We've seen that kind of synchronized movement since Bride of Chuck, and Chucky boasts about his job, listing specific past kills. The yardstick from Child's Play 2, fire from Bride, evisceration. Claire's death by shattered glass ceiling is a direct visual parallel to Tiffany's kill in Bride. It's all interconnected.
But this is where continuity gets a bit messy again, isn't it? The rapid human transformation thing.
Yeah, that's a point of contention. The doll Andy cuts open has visible guts and brains, despite apparently only recently being resurrected. Whereas back in Child's Play 2, it seemed to take about 48 hours for the physical transformation to really begin.
So the franchise just kind of juggles its established rules when it needs a good...
Pretty much. Visual impact often trumps strict continuity, especially in the later entries.
And the ending brings it all together again. The post-credit scene brings back Kyle, wearing her signature hat from Child,
confirming her continued hunting efforts with Andy. This officially connects the original child protagonist, Andy, secondary protagonist from CP2, Kyle, and the new dark protagonist from the later films, Nica. The hunters are finally unified.
Okay, so we've thoroughly covered the movies. Now we absolutely have to enter the expansive world of the era. Chucky seasons 1, 2, and 3, where the meta references become turbocharged and the continuity is, well, meticulously and sometimes clumsily made.
Right. The first season is primarily just a massive homage to Child's Play 2.
How so?
Well, the theme song is a direct reorchestration of the CP2 score, and the visual design of the Chucky doll itself intentionally mimics the look of the doll from that second movie. The creator, Don Mancini, even stated he chose that look because it was often cited as the fan favorite design.
And the Halloween influence is super heavy this season, isn't it? It takes place around Halloween itself.
Oh, massive. It reinforces the show's deliberate choice to ground Chucky back in that hyper-specific, relentless slasher environment of the late 70s and 80s. You see tons of parallels.
Like
the opening POV shot is very haunting. There's a character named Dr. Mick, named after the Doctor in Halloween the Second. Both Charles Lee Ray and Michael Myers dress as clowns in 1960s flashback. Lexi is forced to babysit, which echoes Halloween 4.
And the specific music choice is a deep cut too, right? Lexi sings Blue Oyster Cult's Don't Fear the Reaper,
which is the exact song Laurie and Annie listened to in the car in the original Halloween. It's detail layered on detail for the horror.
The continuity in season 1 also fills in some crucial blanks for longtime viewers.
Yeah. When Jake is researching Chucky online, the search results reveal the previously unknown first names of some classic characters. Elizabeth Kettlewell, the teacher from Child's Play 2, and Haskell Sullivan, the CEO from Child's Play 2 and 3. Little details finally filled in.
We also see the tradition of characters throwing Chucky in the trash continue with Jake. Even though he knows the doll is alive, it's like this almost ritualistic rejection of the trauma that never works.
It never works. And the Toy Story rivalry, still going strong. Decades later.
You're kidding. How?
In a flashback to Charles Lee Ray's childhood room, he has cowboy and astronaut-themed decorations. Jesse's hat from Toy Story 2. A Viewmaster. Little Green Army Men. All characters or items from the rival Pixar universe.
That's incredibly cheeky. A nod to the whole competitive horror versus family film dynamic.
Exactly. It's baked right in.
Okay. Season 2 shifts gears completely. It becomes this hybrid of Seed of Chucky's themes and an Exorcist parody.
Pretty much. The main theme becomes the struggle between good and evil and the Catholic concept of guilt. It manifests specifically in the main kid characters, Jake, Lexi, and Nadine, as they deal with their past actions in Chucky's.
And we get extreme genre parodies again, brainwashing Chucky by clipping his eyes open with hair clips.
That's a direct parody of the conditioning scene in Stanley Kubrick Clockwork Orange. But yeah, the most dominant influence is clearly The Exorcist. You get levitation, projectile green vomit, tribute character named Father O'Malley, ultimately the possession transferring.
But the element that sparks the most critical analysis, according to the sources, the Colonel Chucky.
Right, who is a pretty clear parody of Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. He commands troops of other Chuckies in the wilderness, sets up camp. His final words before dying are the horror.
And the sources heavily critique the use of Vietnam War flashbacks for Charles Lee Ray. Why is that such a point of contention?
Well, basically, Charles Lee Ray was simply too young to have fought in that war. He was born in the 1950s. He would have been a child during the bulk of the conflict.
So the inclusion of the Vietnam motif is just inaccurate.
It demonstrates the show's priority, really. Prioritizing the reference, the visual gag, the high-concept genre parody over strict logical character continuity. Sometimes the joke comes.
Which, if we connect this to the bigger picture, just emphasizes the show's primary structural strategy. Everything is fair game to reference, even if it kind of established sometimes.
Exactly. We also see continuity embedded in the set dressing, like the safe passcode in Dr. Mixter's office, 110988.
The original Child's Play release date, November 9th.
Right. And we absolutely have to mention the constant reuse of actor Devon Sawa.
Oh my gosh, yes, he plays Jake's father.
And his uncle.
And Father Bryce.
All of whom become victims of Chucky. It makes Saw like the ultimate long-suffering victim of the entire franchise across multiple roles. It's very meta.
Okay, finally, we arrive at season 3, shifting locales dramatically to the White House and focusing thematically on transparency versus secrecy.
Yep, and the episode titles this season just use straight movie titles like Murder at 1600 and Final Destination. No more song titles.
The thematic focus feels really intense. Jake, Devon, and Lexi stay at the water tower,
immediately referencing the famous political scandal and the whole idea of secrecy. They're in room 1105, which has ties to Guy Fawkes' Law Rebellion, exposing dark secrets.
Yeah.
The president's family is constantly battling this theme of hidden truth versus public image.
We also see clearer clues that the franchise might be moving towards some kind of conclusion regarding the good guy dolls themselves.
Oh, so?
Well, Jake's final art piece needs a good guy doll, and he specifically notes they've become impossible to find. And the president's young son, Henry, has this dinosaur-themed room.
Thematically paralleling the idea of Chucky and the good guy doll army may be going extinct. A massive hint that the vessel supply might actually be drying up.
It feels like Tiffany's journey is also detailed this season with a really humorous callback.
The cooking show thing.
Yeah. While she's in prison, she shifts her fandom from the disgraced Martha Stewart to this celebrity chef, Evelyn Elliott. And it turns out Elliott's signature Swedish meatballs recipe was the very dish Tiffany used to court Charles Lee Ray back in the 80s.
That's a wonderfully deep continuity thread. It just highlights her bizarre blend of like domesticity and extreme violence.
The climax is layered with political and dark foreshadowing, too. Chucky dresses as the Phantom of the Opera,
symbolizing a manipulator, hiding within a grand house, pulling strings.
And the president and first lady dress as JFK and Jackie Kennedy for Halloween.
Which is incredibly ominous, referencing the assassination and the subsequent national trauma.
Yeah.
Especially potent since the president is played by Devon Sawa.
The star of Final Destination, which is the title of the season finale, linking the actor directly to the theme of unavoidable death.
Layers upon layers. And in a shocking callback to the film era, the president's son, Junior, who's been corrupted by Chucky, actually kills his father by beating him down with the Chucky doll.
Which directly mirrors Tiffany killing her nanny with the Tiffany doll back in Seed of Chucky, history repeating itself.
Exactly. And after the good guy army is mobilized for delivery, Andy, no longer the perpetual victim, hijacks the truck full of Chucky. It puts the hunter firmly in the driver's finally.
And we end with the ultimate meta end. Chucky is lounging fireside, directly addressing the audience about literary themes, Austen, Shakespeare, even Mancini himself.
Directly mimicking the Mary Shelley fireside intro that was used in Bride of Frankenstein, bringing it full circle. And then he adopts the concept of a kill count.
Yeah, directly nodding to all those horror analysis channels on YouTube claiming, although remembers the number of people I killed, It's pure meta.
It really is.
So, okay, what is this all actually? The sheer density of this franchise, interconnected character trauma, the shifting genre references, the constant, deeply specific callback, it kind of proves that the Chucky franchise is far more...
Absolutely. I think it functions as this complex recursive system. Each new entry doesn't just advance the plot. It actively feeds its own past trauma and secrets back into the next installment. It's constantly referencing itself.
And the true constant isn't really Chucky's evil, maybe, but more the relentless cycle of trauma experienced by the main protagonists, Andy, Nica.
And the total inability of corporations or society or even their own family sometimes to protect them from a threat they know is real. The systemic failure is almost as much the villain as Chuck.
And this leads us, I think, to our final provocative thought. The source material, the TV, it ends with its cancellation after, but the knowledge dropped within that season that good guy dolls are now impossible to find suggests a kind of logistical end. If Chucky's ability to jump souls between bodies is potentially infinite, as we saw demonstrated by the call, but the original good guy doll vessels, his preferred medium, are now finite, is the ultimate, maybe unintentional goal of the entire franchise. Actually, Chucky running himself into a true permanent running out of bodies.
Is the friend to the end always just one more convenient plot device, one more retcon away from finding a brand new vessel, a new lease on life, something for you to mull over until our next deep dive?